I love Kevin Smith. And I not only love Kevin Smith as a writer, as a director, as an actor. I love him as a person. I love him as a podcaster. I've been a fan of Kevin Smith since I was a kid. I think around middle school was when I saw Dogma. I think Dogma was probably the first Kevin Smith movie that I ever saw. And
probably me too.
Cool. And I was hooked. I was a fan, and I've been a fan ever since. And I am, and it's interesting because like this movie, after I watched Live Free or Die Hard, I basically was inspired because I looked through Kevin Smith's films and I was like, oh shit, there's only 2 Kevin Smith movies that I haven't watched, and one of them is a Bruce Willis movie, and it's Cop Out, which is kind of interestingly enough known as, I won't go too far into it. For our audience members, if you ever want to look up, just go to YouTube and look up Kevin Smith and Bruce Willis, and he'll tell stories about working with him on the set of Live Free or Die Hard, and then working with him on the set of Cop Out, and just different experiences working with a very unique actor, let's say. And it's interesting how Kevin Smith talks about...
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. He talks about his own films in a quote-unquote very honest way. And Cop Out is a movie like another one of his films, Jersey Girl, that he kind of universally talks about as just a bad movie in his career. And it's interesting how when I hear him talking about the movie, like he thinks Tracy Morgan is the funniest part of that movie, and that Bruce Willis is just this sort of like stiff performance and is kind of like not doing what he wanted of it. I liked Cop Out. I thought that movie was very funny. I thought Bruce Willis is hysterical in it. I think that he's playing an asshole and like a strict character, but like I feel like the seriousness of his character really juxtaposes Tracy Morgan and just like the bonkersness of that story. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but like I really enjoyed Cop Out, and because I enjoyed Cop Out, I went and I watched the final movie that I hadn't seen by Kevin Smith, which was called Yoga Hosers. And that is not a movie I enjoyed. That movie I did not enjoy very much.
That movie looks bad.
There's an awkwardness to that movie that makes me really feel like it is simply made for middle school or younger girls. It is a movie that seems to be attempting to speak that language, and I almost wonder if it's just not a movie made for me. Like, I didn't enjoy it, but by the end of it I was like, God, I really hope there is a crowd of young girls that just enjoys this movie, because I think it's funny how the 2 guy characters who are kind of the love interests in that movie, they end up being a bunch of Satanists who want to like murder them, and like the whole movie is really just about their friendship, like these 2 girls, their friendship, and how tight they are. There's even a really funny scene where like Justin Long is like asking about their friendship, and I think the 2 of them mentioned that they poop together. Like basically when they go and take a shit, they'll shit together and like have a conversation with each other. And I just found like all of that to be so funny. And I will also shout out, Justin Long is hysterical in Yoga Hosers. He plays a guy named Yogi Bayer. Bayer is his last name, and he goes by the name like Yogi Bear, and like people, he gets like phone calls.
That's really funny.
He gets like phone calls throughout the movie of people like saying that he's like in breach of contract and like he can't use that name.
That's really funny.
But yeah, this week I really love Kevin Smith. I kind of just, I watched his final movies, and now I've seen all of his work, and I really love all of his movies, or I'm fascinated by all of his movies. I really think that as a director, as a writer, he doesn't always make movies that I think are very good. I don't think he makes movies that are great or like always these amazing films. But he swings and he tries things, and I think that his swings are very fascinating. Tusk being one of them, but also movies like Red State. Red State is a fascinating movie.
Right.
And I'm all in. Like I'm a big fan of his podcasting career. I've been listening to him on Hollywood Babylon since 2012, and that's the first podcast I ever started listening to, so I guess it's appropriate to bring it up here. The first episode I ever listened to was like an episode where Ralph Garman just shits on The Dark Knight Rises for like 2.5 hours, and Kevin Smith is on
funny.
like the defense side, and I am just a wholehearted fan of his. I love Kevin Smith, and I wanted to shout out some love for him today. I even dragged you to an episode of Hollywood Babylon once in my fandom.
I did go with you to that, and it was funny. It was a funny show. I have liked Kevin Smith basically my whole life. I was very, very much inspired by and charmed by his independent filmmaking. It was a thing that probably without, he was one of the early people that made me think I could go into filmmaking.
Yeah, me too.
So that was an important thing. And Dogma was a movie that I think was the first time I found a kind of off-the-cuff, funny way to skewer some forms of religion.
Yeah.
And I think I was looking for that at the time, and that certainly was big and influential for me.
Yeah.
Even his like stand-up specials, his like Evening with Kevin Smith's, are not consistent, and not every story is interesting, but like, the whole story of John Peters wanting to put the giant spider in Superman Lives, there are some great, great funny things that he has been so frank about from his time in the industry.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And the last few years, I have certainly not met him halfway on. I fucking hated Tusk. And Yoga Hosers looked so dumb, and I had no interest in Red State. And I don't really think that ultimately takes away from the appreciation and the love that I've had for his stuff. But I definitely would not consider myself just a unconditional here for all of it fan. It just so happens that a lot of it has been successful for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. I think I'm here for all of it, but I'm honest about what I think are sort of the movies that I'm not a fan of, i.e. something like Mallrats. I'm actually one of the few people, I actually don't enjoy Mallrats that much, and that's kind of one of his bigger cult movies, actually. A lot of people love that movie. But like even recently he did Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and I didn't expect much of that movie, and I feel like I laughed a lot, and by the end I was kind of moved. And that's really his ability to move me emotionally is something that when he does it in his comedies, it always hits me in such an unexpected way. Like I am even moved emotionally in Clerks 2. There's this great line, and maybe I've told it to you before, but I think Randall has this great line where he basically just says like, I wish you would have told me that you were going to bail on our friendship 10 years later because I wouldn't have bothered with you in the first place. Like I remember like when I heard that
brutal
line, like that really made me, that just connected with me in such an interesting, just unique way. And in terms of just like having friendships with people and having that sometimes unhealthy expectation of friends. And I don't like to be a person who expects much from friends, but there is that sort of love that's there. And I enjoy how he kind of deals with brotherly love or just like friendship love in a very intimate way. Like he doesn't shy away from male intimacy. And I love that about his movies. And he's made me such an open person. He's made me such a conversational person. I think that he's like given me the comfort to be able to speak myself, because if he can just speak on these like huge long diatribes forever and interest people, it's like maybe I can find a way of building my voice, and maybe not exactly the way he does it, but in similar ways. Like I find him a very inspirational person.
It at least gives you the confidence to do it.
Yeah. And that also relates to the filmmaking thing I think you mentioned. Like Kevin Smith is one of those filmmakers who, like as a kid, I loved Mel Brooks movies, and I had no idea how to write or make them. But when I saw a Kevin Smith movie, it was like, okay, I think I can understand this a little more. And I think he's probably the gateway for a lot of people in that way.
tangible.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this week I love Kevin Smith. I love him so much. He's one of my top 5 favorite filmmakers. Absolutely. Easily.
That's really sweet. That's really, really sweet.